Back out here at the D3Hoops.com Classic, wrapping it up from the South Point Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Pat Coleman, and I'm joined by Larry Doty, the head coach of Linfield, whose team lost to Wisconsin Lutheran 78-73 in the final game of our tournament. Your team battled back into it, Coach, but kind of a tough way to go at the end.
Yeah, especially when you play from behind most of the game, which was what we did tonight. So I'll give our kids some credits for hanging in there and managing the clock and continuing to give a good effort, but way too many turnovers tonight.
Yeah, and that's I'm sure that's one of the keys everybody looks at. And you've got a really young team, too.
Yeah, we do, but we also have enough veteran players that they should be able to take care of the ball better. But I like our group. They work hard. They're pretty resilient. We were hoping to be able to come down here and win a couple of games before we head back into the conference year. We're 1-1 in the conference right now, but it didn't happen, so we have to go back to the drawing board and see what we can do.
How important is it for you guys to come to a tournament like this, whether it's this one or another one, and pick up some regional games, considering the part of the country you're in, you have basically no non-conference regional opponents in your area?
No, it's critical, Pat, because there's no, the closest conference for us is a SCIAC down in L.A. Everything costs money, right. And so you have to have funds to be able to do that. So for us to be able to play some D3 talent's pretty important, and most of our preseason schedule has been against any high school. So we were happy to come down here. It's a great cultural event for our kids. A lot of them hadn't been to Vegas before, and so we've been able to go there in Phoenix and San Antonio and San Diego and some other places. So they look forward to that this time of the year.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that you used to have some veteran players, but I'm looking up and down the roster. You started today. You started one senior, but you started like three sophomores and a freshman, or two sophomores and two freshmen. You bring a bunch of sophomores and freshmen off the bench as well.
Yeah, and I guess what I meant by veteran players is guys that were on the team last year. They may not have had a lot of minutes and playing time last year, but they're still pretty young in terms of playing. But we're at a point where we're 12 games into the season, so you got to kind of figure that those guys are a little bit more salted and a little bit more veteran players.
You're in your third decade coaching at Linfield.
Yep.
It's your alma mater, so you've seen Linfield athletics in a lot of different scenarios.
Yep.
What's it been like since the transition, which now is 15 years into transitioning out of the NAIA in Division III?
When we first did it, none of the athletic directors in our conference, in fact, they voted unanimously not to go to Division III.
Really?
Yeah, but the presidents voted to go, and that's where the power was, and so we did it. And so there has been a transition there. And so the student athlete that you get is a little bit different from the guys that we used to get back when we were NAI, and that was in the late 90s. There was a 2-year moratorium when our conference went back in 98. And so, back then when we were first getting into the conference, we had some good teams that won the conference. They were 20-5 and 21-6 and got into the NCAA playoffs. And so we're hoping to get back to that particular point where we can compete. And in our conference, the top 4 get into the playoffs every year. So we've still got a chance.
Did you guys redshirt a lot of players before the redshirting restrictions went into effect?
Well, actually, D3, there's really no such thing as a redshirt.
I mean, I know that now, but 6 or 7 years ago it was still there.
Yes, it was. And so, we have a JV and a varsity program. So we have 28 kids in our program, and whatever guys don't make the varsity end up playing on the JV. So we usually don't redshirt anybody.
Okay. Well, it's been a few years. I guess 2008 was the last time you guys had a winning record.
Yep, it has been a few years. So, and you look at a team right now, we're 2-10. Overall, but we're 1-1 in the conference, and that's what really matters. So hopefully we'll learn from the games that we've played early in the season and be able to go back and do some. We've got 3 home games when we kick off the conference against George Fox and PLU and UPS, and then we go to a 7-game road stretch. So need to hold serve at home a little bit and then go on the road and win a couple of games.
At Linfield, you guys are kind of surrounded by some programs that have had some good success in Division III. Your football team won the 2004 national title, goes deep into the playoffs on a fairly regular basis. Softball team recently won the national title. Baseball has been to the D3 World Series a couple times. What is it that the Linfield men's basketball program has to do to get itself to that level?
I think that recruiting is a big part of that. And I think that getting veteran kids in there, the kids that stay through your program for the 4 years so that you don't have down cycles like we're having right now. And you're right, the Linfield Athletics has been very successful in those sports that you mentioned. Even last year with the softball team losing in the national championship to a team from our conference, PLU. So I think in order for us to get back, I think Andrew Batuk is an outstanding player, our 6'9" center. He was an all-conference guy last year. We graduated 2 other all-conference players last year. Our guard play is a little bit shaky right now, and so we're hoping that some of those kids in these preseason games have learned a lot and will be able to battle once we get into the conference.
Well, Coach, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming down to Vegas, and glad you made it to the D3Hoops.com Classic.
So am I. It's been a good experience.
He's Larry Doty, the head coach of Linfield College, the final interview of our 13 interviews from the D3Hoops.com Classic.